Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Great to be here, at least on Zoom. I see so many old friends. And um, thank you. It's fantastic. Okay, well, today I'm going to talk about the Heart Sutra. Um, and of course, we chant it every time we meet, as basically every Zen temple does. And not only Zen, throughout Tibet, uh, Korea, Japan, all the countries that follow what we call Mahayana Buddhism, it's chanted every day in the temples. My, I'm not a scholar, but I think that's the case. And it's been around 1400 years, actually. And there are a couple of different versions, which we'll talk about. It's a somewhat difficult text, so I'll explain some of the context, and we're not going to get very far in it. It's a very rich text. It's entitled the Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra, which means the heart or essence of perfect understanding. And it's actually a condensation or summary of thousands of pages of teachings in many Prajnaparamita sutras. And so it's very condensed. A lot is packed into it. Of course, to understand the Heart Sutra is a very dubious claim for anyone. And I think of what Newton is supposed to have said after discovering the laws of gravitation. He said, "I do not know what I may appear to the world, but to myself, I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore and diverting myself in now and then finding a smoother pebble or a prettier shell than ordinary, whilst the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me." So it's kind of the way I feel, and we'll just have to do the best we can. The Heart Sutra begins, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, practicing deep Prajnaparamita, clearly saw that all five skandhas are empty, transforming all suffering and distress. I'm not sure that's exactly the translation you use. I don't know where I got that from, probably here in Santa Barbara. It's crucial to understand that the entire sutra is spoken by Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, the one who hears the cries of the world. And my teacher, Mel Weitzman, once told me that the Heart Sutra is really the equivalent of the Metta Sutta, the Loving Kindness Sutta. It addresses the same problem, the problem of suffering and its relief for ourselves and others. The Metta Sutta is a much earlier text, and it addresses these problems in terms that make reasonable sense to anyone. It tells us to be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, contented and easily satisfied. Traditionally, practitioners are taught to repeat certain simple phrases to help them develop the loving kindness. The Heart Sutra was composed centuries later and engages the same issues in a very different way. For the earlier Buddhists, suffering was caused by the thirst that things be other than what they are. So the cessation of that thirst would bring suffering to an end. And of course, these are in the Four Noble Truths, the second and third Noble Truths. And early Buddhism lists all sorts of teachings, maybe as a gnomic device. The early texts were oral tradition for hundreds of years before written down. Now, in this sutra, as elsewhere, Shariputra is the embodiment of the early teachings of the Buddha, and a very wise disciple of the Buddha. And later, his teachings were looked at in what we call the Mahayana tradition as a bit narrow. And so he's kind of a fall guy in some of the Mahayana texts, but he was great. So in the Heart Sutra, there are really three characters: the Buddha, Avalokiteshvara, and Shariputra. And that's clearer in the slightly expanded version used in Tibet. According to this version, it says at the beginning, in a little kind of introduction, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way, he saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. So the Buddha is right there and entered a very deep meditative state. And being in the presence of this meditative state, the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara was moved to a new understanding. And he saw that all things are empty of nature, whatever that means. The sutra here uses the word skandhas, which we can understand as, we'll talk more about later about them, but they are the way we create the idea of a separate self. And later in the Heart Sutra, they're named specifically and addressed. We won't get quite that far. So the Buddha, the sutra goes on. Through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? So the Buddha, still in his deep meditation, inspired Shariputra as well to ask Avalokiteshvara how this new understanding should be practiced. And the entire sutra we chant is Avalokiteshvara's response. A sutra usually embodies the teaching of the Buddha himself and is the record of what he said. But here, the Buddha says not a word, which itself is really a profound embodiment of the teaching of the sutra, the teaching of emptiness. And in the brief postlude, Avalokita, which is in the Tibetan version, Avalokita explains that he has been explaining how we should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. So the sutra is not only about compassion, but also about practicing compassion, practicing this insight. And now we can get to the actual sutra. It starts with Avalokiteshvara practicing deep Prajnaparamita. Prajna is wisdom beyond wisdom, very deep, intuitive kind of knowing. The paramita is perfection, and prajna is the sixth of the six perfections: generosity, ethics, patience, energy, mindfulness, and wisdom. And they're the basic guide to the life of a bodhisattva or awakened being, to the life of everyone who practices Mahayana Buddhism seriously. So in a way, we are all baby bodhisattvas of a sort. In his practice, Avalokiteshvara clearly saw that all five skandhas are empty, transforming all suffering and distress. Other translations simply say he overcame all pain and was relieved of all suffering. So something wonderful happened to Avalokiteshvara when he saw that all five skandhas are empty. Skandhas, as I said, are the elements that compose our life. And they're called heaps or rivers. They're rivers of experience through which we understand ourselves. And we, from the point of view of the Heart Sutra, kind of falsely understand ourselves simply as form. So the first is form, things themselves. Dharmas with a small d. With a capital D, the word dharma is the teachings of the Buddha. With a small d, it's anything we see, everything that we encounter. And then feelings, we see something we either like, dislike, or are indifferent. We either want to grab it, or we want to push it away, or it's sort of okay the way it is. Then we have the sense perceptions. We have, in reaction to the sense perceptions in general, individual thoughts called mental formations. Finally, we have consciousness, which is connecting those thoughts. And he says all dharmas, all things are marked by emptiness. And he starts by discussing the first skandha, form, but what she really means is the form is all the skandhas, everything that goes into our experience. And everything that goes into our experience, we usually perceive as contributing to some idea of a separate self. So the sutra goes on to say form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. So this is a very radical statement. So what does the sutra mean by form? What does it mean by emptiness? Thich Nhat Hanh poses the next obvious question, empty of what? We say a cup is empty after we have poured water out of it, but the cup is still full of air. Emptiness does not mean nothing. When Avalokiteshvara says all five skandhas are empty, he doesn't say all five skandhas don't exist. They do exist. And Google lists something like 20 or 18 or 20 different definitions of emptiness, or in Sanskrit, shunyata. Mel once told me there were 30 or more. But the basic way to understand it is paradoxical. It's to see how many things are present in whatever we encounter. So you think this paper that I'm reading from is a thing. It's Dharma with a small d. But it's printed on paper, and the paper comes from a tree. So within paper, there are trees. But trees couldn't exist without sunlight. So within this little piece of paper is the sun. It couldn't exist without soil. So in this paper is our planet, the Earth. It couldn't exist without water. It needs to have water just to be alive. And so all the oceans are in the paper. But we can go on. The paper wouldn't exist without the logger who might cut down the tree, and without his mother or father. It wouldn't exist without the truck that takes the tree to a factory where the tree is split into many pieces, and those pieces taken maybe to another factory. It's the finished paper is taken in a truck, driven by a truck driver who had parents, to the store where we buy it. So you could say that the paper contains the whole universe. And, that in a way, I don't know, we have the expression, the diamond net of Indra, where the universe is described as like this kind of spider web, and each place in the web where lines meet is a diamond, and each diamond reflects every other diamond. So the paper is one of the diamonds. It reflects the sun, it reflects the earth, it reflects the ocean. And Thich Nhat Hanh has a marvelous word for it called interbeing. All things are interbeing. And in Buddhism, we say dependent co-arising. They arise depending on everything else. So everything is contained in the paper. So if that's so, the paper is hardly everything. It has the sun and the earth and all that. So maybe Avalokiteshvara might have been wrong. It's hardly empty. It's full of everything. But we have to understand that he might respond, everything is in the paper except a separate self. It's not separate because within it is the sun, the earth, the ocean. And the word paper is a shorthand for all the interrelationships of all the things that made paper, which brought it into being, which in a sense is pretty much everything. And I think I understand this best realizing that in Buddhism, I've been told there are no nouns, really. There are adjectives and verbs. So we say emptiness, but it's not a noun. It's not a thing. There's no thing out there called emptiness. Emptiness is an adjective that describes the nature of things. The emptiness describes the nature of the paper, the tree, the loggers, you and me. Anything you can name. And all of these things are without an independent existence. They do not exist without everything else. They're all intercombined, interbeing. It is in this sense, any form we perceive is empty of a separate self. It's filled with everything in the universe except a separate self. And when we point to the fact that the tree is filled with everything, we can use the word suchness, the suchness of the tree. And when we point to the tree and point towards its emptiness of a separate self, its combination with all the rest, we can talk about emptiness. So suchness and emptiness, we say they inter-are, Thich Nhat Hanh's term. Suchness and emptiness inter-are. Form and emptiness inter-are. And when Avalokiteshvara discovered this, he found that all suffering and distress were transformed into something else. So the sutra goes on, and we can talk about it, but for today, I think that's enough. It's a good place to stop with Shariputra discovering that suffering and distress are transformed into something else. So thank you very much. Okay, so please, questions, comments. Okay, Agassi.
Heather, this actually reminded me of, I don't know if you've ever heard of Martin Heidegger.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of this is, it's reminding me of that. One part in particular is when you commented that, or when you said, things don't exist in and of itself, they exist in relation to other things. I remember a comment that one of my professors made, think of a hammer in a workshop. Okay. The hammer, its purpose in that workshop is to hammer things, but imagine it in a pastry shop. It doesn't have purpose in and of itself. It only has purpose or meaning rather, in relation to the task at hand or in relation to other things. So yeah, this whole thing kind of reminded me of that class from Martin Heidegger.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I don't know Heidegger very well. Of course, I know of him, and I know that people say he's closest to Buddhist thought, which is kind of a mixed blessing given his politics, but nevertheless, he was a great philosopher. And I can't comment on the philosophy, but it does sound very much like that the hammer has no use in the pastry shop. Yeah, I don't know. This is just sort of riffing on it. I mean, the thingness of a hammer is present in the hammer in the pastry shop, as well as the hammer in the, the place where they hammer things. But I don't think that changes your point. And it's somewhere probably, it's addressed somewhere probably in the Buddhist teachings that, but I don't know where. But thank you. That's great. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, send it.
Thank you, Joel, for the talk. It was really excellent. You made something that sounds so esoteric. Very, you've how do I say it? You've kind of shined it up, modernized it, and made it a little more now, more readily understandable. And I hope you'll come back and finish and continue on. So
actually, this is the first of a series of talks. I have 2 more so far, and it's really a challenge, and I'm learning so much by really looking and studying the Heart Sutra. As far as you making it more accessible, I think I have to thank Thich Nhat Hanh very much.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, he's marvelous at.
Yes. I love his little book on the Heart Sutra.
Right. I ripped off that a lot, as I'm sure you were aware. But it's,
yes.
And there are so many books, and I looked at several, but that was very, very helpful.
Yes.
That you have? any question? I mean, something I can help you with?
Did some, oh,
A question or a comment that, I mean, so far you've been very wonderful and thanked me and all of that and requested more.
no, but I just, oh, are you talking to me, Joel?
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh, I didn't know if you were talking to someone else. No, I just wanted to say that, you know, I've read his book, and his book gave me some insight, but hearing you discuss it helped me more, a better understanding.
I'm very,
So
thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Okay, great. Hi, good to see you.
Right. So let me get, let's see. I don't know if I could do, let's get my audio going. Okay. Okay, can you hear me okay? That's really neat. I'm gonna kill that.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, I just went ahead and muted the microphone for Peter's computer. So they'll have to unmute it once Mark disconnects his cell phone from audio.
Okay.
Okay, we're okay now, right? Perfect. This world, everything is part of this world. Every item, every rock, gases, solids, liquids. How far does this go?
It goes everywhere.
So we would say it permeates the whole universe, right?
Absolutely. It is, my understanding, that is it. The whole universe is everywhere, and everything out there reflects everything else. Or they,
Yet, I'm hearing so many echoes here. Is everyone else?
yes.
Yes, Mark, it's because the sound is still coming from the Roku in Peter and Jane's, attached to Peter and Jane's computer, but you've got your iPhone's microphone unmuted. Can you please disconnect your iPhone from audio, and we'll use Peter and Jane's microphone to pick up your sound?
Is that? We're not getting any sound.
Peter, can you please unmute your microphone?
Yeah, it's still muted, Peter.
It's just muted, so if you just hit the normal unmute button, you'll be good. It's the one next to stop video.
There it goes. Okay.
No. Oh, my sound's off. I'm gonna kill it.
Yeah, kill your sound. Okay, now we're okay. It's with having two mics in the room. Okay. Yeah, but somehow still set. So I don't know how. Okay. Anyway, so where were we? We were here with Mark. You want to start again?
Okay.
You can talk. They hear you over there, don't you?
No, I'm turned off.
But here they hear you.
I'll just.
We
sit
can
right
hear
here,
your
so-
voice from Peter and Jane's microphone.
Yeah,
You
go
don't-
ahead.
Okay.
Okay. Go back there and try.
Okay. No, and it's okay. No, and I don't have to hear any more. This is fine for me. I heard enough.
That was enough. I mean, you know, the universe, there's a lot of stuff in the universe. I mean, you know, so I mean, so like my understanding is something like there's various things that we see, and is that the universe? Did I understand it correctly?
I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it's only us that fix things as things. It's the way we identify things, and that it's our thoughts thinking of a thing creates the thing.
Exactly. That absolutely, and that's the skandhas. The skandhas, and there are other, as there, the Buddhism has all these lists, and they overlap. One way to look at the perception of everything is the skandhas, which the Heart Sutra gets to later. So all things are dharmas, lowercase, and we perceive them through eyes, nose, tongue, body, mind, our sense organs. And Buddhism has a whole bunch of stuff on that, which again is in the Heart Sutra. So the philosophical thing about the tree in the forest, if we don't hear it, again, I'm not really knowledgeable about philosophy. I know that is a big issue. Does it exist if we don't see it? But I'm not really qualified to go into that. I think in a practical sense of our practice, we're practicing with what we in fact do see with our sense organs. And that's got a lot of practice to work with. Does that help at all?
Yes.
Okay, good. I mean, there must be a place where Buddhism addresses that, but I really don't know where. Okay, thank you. Yes, Andy?
Don't they say that we create our own world?
Yeah, I mean, this is great. I mean, you guys are asking such great questions. Yeah, we create our own world by our perceptions.
So if, say, for instance, I were blind or deaf, my perception of the world would be different from someone else's perception who had the senses. Um,
Sure.
but just like it's like every morning you get up, you open your eyes, you wake up, and you perceive what's around you, and but in a sense you're creating it at that moment. That's what it seems like, and that
Yeah,
it's just like we have a choice if we want to perceive something one way or if we want to perceive it another way. So if we have a choice in the matter, like you were saying, you like it, you don't like it, you don't care, you have a choice there. So you are the creator of that moment. You are the creator of what you pay attention to, and what is around you.
very good point. I think that is addressed. I mean, there's a teaching, there's the object, like the paper. There's the sense organ, like the eye that perceives the paper. And then there's the eye consciousness that kind of puts them together. And in its pure form, that is, there are no words to it. It's simply that there it is. And that's actually, my understanding is the third standard of our um, of senses. And actually, the light dislike is kind of almost actually before that, more primitively. I think the way we create the world is in the mind consciousness, the sixth consciousness, when It's the fifth skanda, but the sixth consciousness. uh, of see something with our eye consciousness, and then we name it. We say paper,
Right.
and that's getting into the realm of formations. We name everything we do. And consciousness is where those perceptions like bump into each other. We say paper, and then we say, oh yes, the paper is made of paper. And so that's at that level, we're in a sense creating the world.
Right.
So I consider Jane correct. I think in Buddhism, the truth, you say the paper is there. I'm not sure, but I think so. The paper is there, and then we go through this process of sense perception. And it's at the level of the sixth consciousness, mind consciousness, that we've created it. And in practice, what's happening is we're kind of, to some degree, in a sense, kind of deconstructing the mind consciousness so that when our minds are very clear, we just have the paper, just this is it. And then it goes on from there. Does that help?
Yes, but what happens when you crumple up that piece of paper and you throw it away and it goes in the garbage and you never see it again?
Well,
do you think it's gone? Do you think it's no longer in existence? I mean, it still is there.
right. Well,
it's like you're breaking up a little.
This, for no scientifically known reason, should help. If I can get this to work right. Does that help?
Yeah, I can, as long as you're close in, you're not breaking up.
How's that? That's okay?
That's good. Yeah, you're not breaking up.
Great. So, okay. Well, that's part of this chain of emptiness. It's part of the interbeing, the not separate self. The paper doesn't have a separate self. The paper becomes crumpled and it becomes part of garbage. And the garbage, maybe we put it in the compost pile. And then we put the compost pile in the compost in our garden. And then the paper has become a flower that grows in the garden. And that's a great example of the emptiness of the paper. There's no separation between the paper, the garbage, the compost, and the flower. And so that's an example, I think, of what Avalokiteshvara is saying. You look at the garbage, it contains the paper. You look at the flower, it contains the garbage, it contains the paper. And so, does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Does it help you in your
Yes.
question? Oh, great. Yes. Fantastic.
So we actually can say we shouldn't worry about our change. We shouldn't worry about growing old because it's just part of that same change. I would be no different than a piece of paper that got crumpled up and put in the trash if I died. And if I was cremated and my husband spread my ashes somewhere, well, I would just be part of the dirt, the grass, whatever grows. So it's like nothing ever really, everything changes, yet nothing stays. I mean, nothing can stay the same because of emptiness. So
yes. exactly. That's such a basic teaching of Buddhism, that everything changes. So when we die, we don't fall out of the universe.
Right.
Yeah. Like you say, we might turn into ash, and if we're cremated, and that's fine. I mean, one thing I'd say, like you said, I mean, we shouldn't
Yeah.
from the point of view of practice, the should is just something extra we're adding to it. Like
Right.
the idea of death arises, and it's just that. It's just an idea. From
Right.
what we've seen with our sense organs or perceived with our sense organs throughout our life, we have a knowledge in our mind consciousness that this has characterized everything we've ever seen, including people, including therefore ourselves. And a lot of practice, I think, a lot of what motivates a lot of us to practice is that struggle with, we have an objection to the idea that we in this form are going to change into some other form. And that's natural. But if we look at just this changes into just this, into just this. And so in a certain kind of sense, nothing is lost. Here's a story. My first dog, Clara, who was a great bodhisattva, she was fabulous. She lived till 16. And after, when she died, she shed a lot. So after she died at home, it was beautiful in front of the Buddha. And her body was taken away, and there were a lot of her shedding. And so it was very painful for me to vacuum up a lot of this, of her fur. And so then, being me, I kind of went out to the porch here, and just very nice mountains and stuff, Santa Barbara, and put on some Bach on the sound system. And I noticed that some of her fur was on the patio. It had escaped my vacuuming and was on the patio. And here's my new Hildy, my dog, Hildy. Great. She's 15. So some of Clara, in a sense, was on the patio, and a breeze came up, and the fur was carried off the patio in the direction of the Santa Ynez Mountains. So Clara became the Santa Ynez Mountains, part of the Santa Ynez Mountains. And that was I was very moved. It was an important moment for me. Like, Clara hadn't gone anywhere. She was just now part of the Santa Ynez Mountains. And so, from that point of view, it helped me feel that death was okay, which is a big one for all of us. Did that help? Maybe, maybe not.
That's a lovely story. And
Yeah.
I really appreciated you sharing it.
Yeah.
But it's true. Pets touch us in a different way than people do, I think. And they have a lot to teach us.
Oh God, yes.
And they bring out compassion and love that might not have surfaced. And
Yeah,
so thank you for sharing that.
sure. Yeah, they're amazing. I don't know.
Thank you, thank you, Joe.
You bet,
Thank you.
Peter. You bet.
It's a good place to end the talk here, and
Right.
we'll continue we'll have to have you come again and
I'd-
talk more about the Heart Sutra to us later on.
I'd
Thank
love
you.
to. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Peter. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.